So now you've learned how to make a great sound on the saxophone. Airstream, posture, these are very important things. One of the most important components on the saxophone is the reed. Now the reed is what creates the sound. Having a good reed, taking care of your reeds, properly prepping your reed is very important to get the sound. So now we're going to go into a little bit about how to take care of your reeds, how to get your reeds working. So first, let's look in our case. So I've got some reeds here. Very likely you'll have a reed that looks like this in the case. Take it out. And before I play, I want to get that reed wet, because when it's wet, it vibrates. Vibrates much better wet than dry. I put it in my mouth to wet it, as you just saw. I would put it in for about 30 seconds, just get it nice and wet. You don't want the spit dripping off it, just dry it with your lips, and it should be good and wet on the inside of the reed. It'll vibrate great. You can also use a glass of water if you prefer. So now the reed is good and wet and you're ready to play. Now I'll show you, my saxophone is already put together, so I'll show you how to line up the reed, what you want to do. Take it off the neck, take my mouthpiece cap off, which also helps to keep the reed from getting chipped or dinged, which will make it not play very well as also. So I've got my mouthpiece and my reed separated. I take my reed out of my mouth. I need to line it up with the mouthpiece. The first thing I'm going to do before I do that, though, is flatten the tip of the reed. So I put it on the face, at the bottom part of the face of the mouthpiece, and just flick the corner a little bit just to get it so it's not warped at the tip. And that should help the reed flatten out. Now, lining up the reed, I'm going to have to look closely. I will take in my left hand the mouthpiece. If you're left-handed, you can do it the opposite as how I'm doing it. But I'm right-handed, so I hold the mouthpiece in my left hand. I place the reed flat on the face of the mouthpiece. Okay, the flat part of the reed goes on the flat part of the mouthpiece. And I line up the tip of the reed with the tip of the mouthpiece so that they're lined up evenly. I take my ligature, I hold on to it with my left hand so the reed's in place, take my ligature and slide it over the top. Be very careful not to hit the tip of the reed with your ligature, because again, if it gets chipped, it won't play well. And then I tighten the ligature. Now there are two types of ligatures. Very likely you have a ligature that has the screws on the bottom. Typically the screws are on the right-hand side, so your right hand would tighten the screws. My screw is on the top, so it's kind of an opposite of how yours might be. But either way, they work fine. So you want to line up the ligature just below where the curve of the reed is, below, so that it holds onto the mouthpiece. And the tip of the reed is even with the tip of the mouthpiece. We can then put the saxophone together as you know how to do. Remember, do the neck separately, put it on the neck separately, slide it on, loosen the screw, and then tighten it up. And then you're ready to play. So you'll check your reed and make sure it plays good. Now, if your reed doesn't play good, you might have to try some other reeds. You might have to play through a few reeds to find a good one. I do that all the time. I might play through 5 reeds just to find one good one. So that can be the case. You try a few different reeds if your reed doesn't work. Reeds also don't last forever. You have to change them. I would say on average a reed might last 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe a month. If you're lucky, you get a good month out of a reed, then you're lucky and you have to find a new reed every month. Okay, so make sure you look for new reeds, don't play the same reed. When you're finished playing, you need to store your reed. So I'm going to show you without taking the mouthpiece off. I'll just take the reed out, off the mouthpiece. My mouthpiece and neck in the saxophone case. And I can put it back in the little case that it came with. They come with the reeds, these cases. Or I can slide it into one of these cases. I can buy these cases that hold 4 reeds. These are pretty good because they keep the reeds flat. They're on a flat surface, so they help to keep those reeds flattened out. Okay, so that's very important to do that. Now, again, if for some reason your saxophone isn't working right and the sound doesn't happen to come out good, it could very well be because of the reed. So you need to try some reeds. If you're sure that the reed is okay, there could be a problem with your saxophone. So you need to look it up and down and see that there's no bent keys or any pads that are torn, anything like that. You look up and down, there's a lot of details in the saxophone and might be hard to find sometimes, but if you're sure you've tried many reeds and nothing is working and you know you're playing right, you might have to take your saxophone to a repairman to have it looked at to make sure there's no problems with your saxophone.